All right, everybody. Welcome to the Sandler webinar titled Selling in the Digital Age. Really want to appreciate everybody jumping on this webinar with us today. We have, looks like we're going to have a pretty big turnout. We've got an hour. We could potentially do a whole day on digital selling. So the purpose of today's webinar is to give you some things to start off with, give you some skills, give you some ideas, introduce you to some digital platforms, especially LinkedIn, on how to use that as part of your sales process. There will be an offer at the end of this webinar, so stick around. We're going to talk about a workshop that we're going to be providing, more of an in-depth workshop on digital sales that perhaps you could take advantage of. So we want to make sure that we're going to really equip people for the 21st century. So COVID's got a great way of moving people forward. Like I said, we've had a ton of interest in this webinar specifically. So we want to make sure a couple of housekeeping things. There's a chat feature. Just wanted to share that with everybody. We will be asking people to participate using the chat feature. So we've got some chats in there that we'll want people to kind of write some things in. We're going to ask you a question. So if you can take a look at that. So that's part of the process today and how we're going to interact with you guys. So selling in the digital age. So we're going to start off with a quick little question. Let me just go back. I skipped one here. So when it comes to using digital platforms to sell, what currently is your biggest hurdle? So when you think about digital sales, when you think about being effective from the digital perspective, whether that's email, LinkedIn, Twitter, reaching out, connecting with clients, forming relationships using digital platforms, finding prospects using digital platforms, maybe interacting with people, starting your process there versus with a face-to-face interaction. Really curious what some of your hurdles might be. This is where I want you to break out the chat function, type a couple of things in there, what your hurdles are. I want to make sure we cover some of that today. So asking for the sale. Okay, I see that one. Customers, no responses. Which platform? Old school sales guys. Yeah, that's a big one. I heard that one quite a bit from people and some of our clients where they talk about, I'm a face-to-face person. That's how I interact with people. COVID's totally changed how I do things. Lack of personal touch is the other one I've seen up there. So there's a lot of things that are happening digitally that, frankly are new. And sometimes they cause us some fear. They cause us some insecurities. They make us break out of our comfort zones. So we got to really make sure that we're ready for this change. We got to deal with some of the mental side of it. And so today, one of the platforms I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about is LinkedIn. And the reason I want to talk about LinkedIn, I know a lot of us on this call are B2B salespeople. In other words, we sell to businesses. And there's some statistics that I think you need to be aware of when it comes to LinkedIn. So prior to this whole crisis, prior to the world changing, we talked about LinkedIn in our sales training all the time. And I guarantee you that the majority of people sitting in our sessions would be like, yeah, okay, it's out there, but I have other things that I do, and I don't know why I would add this to the mix, right? So that was a lot of the response I got. Or I got, well, that LinkedIn stuff, that's like, that's like Facebook. Or I would hear things like, yeah, Chad, I'm just old school. I'm a face-to-face person, and that's how I like to interact with people. And so they would do that. They just, I'm not comfortable with that. So here's what we know. The world's changed, and at our fingertips is a tool that frankly is amazing. So I just looked up a couple of stats before today. So the numbers don't lie. First and foremost, you got to know that there's 575 million users of LinkedIn. So just think about that number. If we were to just look at Canada, in Canada alone, so most of us sell probably just in Canada, there are 15 million people on LinkedIn. Well, if you know Canada's population, there's 33 million people total. So it's fair to say that if you're in business, there's a good chance you have a LinkedIn profile. Now, that doesn't mean you use LinkedIn. That doesn't mean you know how to, doesn't mean you go on it. But here's something else you got to remember. 44% of LinkedIn users make more than $75,000 a year. Now, why is that important? I would say that if you are tasked with finding a decision maker, if your goal is to talk to people who own things, right? Own companies, own buildings, own property, because those are the people who make decisions and that's your best fit client, they're probably on LinkedIn. And you probably can even connect with them without going through a gatekeeper using tools like LinkedIn. So the numbers don't lie. By the way, 277% more effective at lead generation than Twitter or Facebook. That's another stat out there. In other words, when people use digital platforms, LinkedIn is the big dog. It is the one that, frankly, is probably going to have the biggest impact on your sales game, which is why we're going to spend more time talking about this tool than Twitter or Facebook. Both of those can be a part of this. If you do use Facebook or you do use Twitter as a digital tool, some of the same concepts still apply. They don't change because it's really around how we interact with people and some of the tools that we're going to use. So here's the thing, social selling, using digital sales, you know what? It's not as hard as you think it is. It's all about behaviors, right? And your mindset. There's tons of help out there. We have an ebook on LinkedIn, by the way. If you want it, you can email us and we'll provide it to you. And you have nothing to lose because you got nothing anyway. So you can't lose what you do not have. It's important that you start using this tool to reach out. A lot of people are afraid of looking bad or doing the wrong thing, so they don't even start. Well, you know what? Now's the perfect time because, frankly, everybody is in the same boat. You're not going to look different. You're not going to look like you're being impersonal. This is a great time to start if you've never done it before. So when we talk about mindset, this is our brain. So what does this really mean? If we want to learn, it's really simple to do. There's really not a lot here that's going to stress you out, frankly. Some of the processes that you use in real life are the processes you can also use in social selling. Now, by the way, some of the mistakes you make in sales in real life also translate to mistakes in the social selling digital world. Coming across too strong, thinking everybody's a prospect, trying to sell everyone on everything is a mistake in real life. It's a mistake on the digital platforms as well. So we want to make sure that we're not going to make those kinds of mistakes. Trust me, it's not as intimidating as you may think, even if you're not a software techie person. I know some of us are in fear of it. We're like, oh my God, social networking. Oh my God, I don't even know what to do. Trust me, we're going to go through some of the key elements of what you should be thinking about. It's not as scary as you think. You control the process. So in other words, we need to create a plan and then execute the plan. A lot of us, we just don't even know where to start, so we haven't created a plan. We're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. What should be in your plan? What are some of the key elements of it, so that you can start creating behaviors that lead to a mindset of this really could work. So in my world, I use LinkedIn a lot. I use digital platforms. It's part of my cookbook. I use it as a sales process all the time. And so I do a couple of simple things consistently. And I will tell you, every single year, I get business out of LinkedIn. I do. I get it, right? Now, does that mean I get 1,000 pieces of business? No. I found my biggest client, though, on LinkedIn and talked to them through that platform first. And that has led to long-term success for my business. But I started with using LinkedIn and in-mail messaging to start that connection. So it can have a massive impact on your sales world if you're willing to try it, but you got to make sure you do it in limitations. I've seen other people who get lost on these platforms for all day, and then they forget to pick up the phone. They forget to maybe go to a networking event, and they put everything in this. So you got to be careful. There is a balance to everything that we're going to do. So first and foremost, what's your profile look like? And this is a really big mistake on LinkedIn. If you haven't looked at your profile, you really need to think about what you're sending out there as a message. I see a lot of mistakes when it comes to profiles. So this is something, this is your brand. And I talk about salespeople in terms of your personal brand. What do you want people to think of you? Do you want them to think of you as trustworthy? Do you want, do you want to be thought of as professional? Do you want to be thought of as a problem solver in your industry? Or do you want to be seen as somebody who's looking for a new job? So a lot of times when I see profiles, I see major mistakes in profiles. I see profiles that aren't finished, no pictures. One of the biggest problems we have is no pictures. Or if you have a picture, it's the one from your wedding photo 15 years ago, and you use that because you just didn't go out and buy, get a professional photo done. Now, I realize right now that might be a little bit challenging, but I guarantee you most cell phones have some pretty good picture taking functions, and you can take a professional looking photo. I always scratch my head at salespeople who have their spouses in the photo, their kids in the photo, their favorite hobby in the photo. It's not Facebook, okay? First thing is you got to look at yourself and say, would I want that image of myself projected to the world in a meeting? Is that really what I want to project? I see people like out with their quads. Well, unless you're in sales selling quads, I'm not really sure why you have a picture of you on a quad, right? It just doesn't make sense. It tells me you're not professional, you don't take the platform seriously, and why would I bother talking to you? So that's a major, major problem. We talk about 30-second commercials. When I read people's profiles, I don't know what they do. All I see is where they worked, what they might be good at, but what they don't tell me is what problems do they solve for their customers? What problems do you solve? A 30-second commercial isn't buy my stuff, we're the greatest, we're the best. That's not what a 30-second commercial is. A 30-second commercial is a statement at the top of your profile saying the kinds of problems you solve for others. So at the beginning of March, Sandler, we had our sales conference. We had probably 1,200 people there. And one of the things that, trends that are changes that are happening in sales, and this is of course before the whole world shut down, is, we often hear about hunters and we hear about farmers, right? So, companies that guy's a real hunter, or that gal's a real hunter, they go find us new business. Farmers, what do? Well, they protect, they kind of cultivate what we got and make sure it's productive. There's a new group out there coming, it's called fishers. What do fishers do? They throw a lure in the water and the lure attracts fish, right? They go, that looks interesting to me, I want to take a bite of that. I want you to think of your LinkedIn profile like a lure, right? It's something that you are looking at on a regular basis, right? So I want you to look at your lure, I want you to drop it in the water, and it's got to be attractive to the kind of fish that you want to capture, right? So if you want to capture small business owners in a particular industry, you got to talk about problems you solve in that industry. If you want to capture CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, you got to put a lure out that's going to attract those people. If you want to talk to, let's say, lawyers and doctors, you have to put a lure out that's attractive to those kind of people, right? So it's really important that you have the right lure. So when you look at your profile, the first thing to do is ask yourself, is this really a professional profile? Does it really represent my brand? Is it going to attract potential prospects to talk to us, right? So that's really important to look at. We get into a lot more detail on this in our LinkedIn book. If you want it, again, at the end, or you can just go on our website and email us. We'll send you the PDF. All right, so a couple of things to look at. No-brainers, all-star status. So LinkedIn ranks your profile in terms of all-star status. If you are not at all-star status, it will tell you what you need to do to get there. Here's the other thing about tools like LinkedIn. Frankly, it starts to put people into news feeds when they add content. They want content. Writing a blog, adding information. They want that in your feed. If you don't add anything in your feed, people probably don't see you anywhere. You don't come up. It's not interesting. So now a lot of us on this call probably are saying, Chad, I am not in marketing though. This is a marketing function. Not anymore. It's a sales function. Marketing and sales are bleeding together. You need to add content. So it sounds intimidating. You might not have done well in English class. So writing a blog to you might be like, oh my God, what am I going to write about? Here's the thing. Go on your best fit clients' sites and look at what they're looking at. Look at what they're reposting. You don't necessarily need to write it. You can just share it. So maybe there's some association that you're a part of that has a really good blog, really good information about something that people you want to talk to care about. Maybe it's new rules in the trucking industry because you're in that industry. Being able to take their blogs and repost it can also get people interested in what you're doing, right? So you don't have to write it necessarily. Your company might have hired somebody to write information like this. This is becoming more and more common. So you might have partnered with a marketing agency and they're writing content. You need to be taking that content and adding it. Now, here's another scary thing, multimedia videos. If you have ever taken a video of yourself, you can create a video that you can put on LinkedIn. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not that hard, right? Being able to shoot a 1 minute, 2 minute video about something of interest to people in your world is a first step. Video engagement is massive on LinkedIn. So if you can shoot a couple of those little videos about information about your company, new products, customers that you work with and have helped, all of those things can be interesting to people. And of course, you can take it to a whole nother level. You can get things like Adobe and start to modify the video. It's frankly not that difficult and doesn't really cost any money, but you got to be posting things, right? And it's things that attract new prospects, not job offers. Because this is the other thing I often hear about using a tool like LinkedIn is that I only get recruiters who want to hire me. If that's what you're seeing out there, maybe it's because you've basically created a resume. So again, make sure you're posting some content up there. Call to action, right? This is a simple thing. What, in your summary section, what's your call to action? Is it making a call? Is it having a 10-minute phone call? Is it participating in a survey? Is it doing some kind of analysis on their business? Some kind of call to action, right? So the key thing that you have to keep in mind is connecting works better than hard sells, right? You've probably seen people who, as soon as you connect with them, they want to say, hey, have I got a deal for you? And right away you're turned off and you go, whoa, I don't like that. That doesn't feel good, right? So you push back. So make sure that you're more about connecting and growing your network. So the stuff I often say with people when I'm connecting, it's just simply, hey, Sally, or hi, Bill. Listen, we've never met in real life, but I noticed we have a lot of the same connection. I was wondering if you'd be open to connecting on LinkedIn. So what happens? About 40% of people will actually accept my connection request when I do that. Well, once they connect with me, the next thing I'm talking about is a 10-minute phone call. And I say, hey, Bill, really appreciate you, connecting with me. Would you be open to taking 10 minutes, just finding out about each other's networks, seeing if there's some real value we can bring here? And if nothing, then at least we had a 10-minute phone call, right? So it's really simple. It's really soft. It's not complicated. And again, it's not offensive, because that's the thing. I don't know you. I don't know if you need what I have. I want to make sure that I'm careful with what I put out there. So make sure that you're connecting, that you have a call to action. Social proof, third-party endorsements. We all know that having our customers say good things about us is valuable. A lot of us don't collect those stories, though. We don't. You might have a customer who says, Sally, you are the best salesperson I've ever met, and your company takes care of us. And you go, awesome, thanks for telling me that. And that's all that happens. Instead of going, hey, would you be able to do me a favor? Would you be willing to write that down and post it on my LinkedIn profile? Now, I realize people are busy. So sometimes people will say, yeah, I'll do that, and then they don't. And then it gets awkward because you don't want to call them again and say, hey, remember that endorsement that you had for me? I was really hoping you'd put that on my LinkedIn website. So if you think that might be a problem, write it for them. And all you have to do is say something like, hey, Sally, you're probably pretty busy. would you be okay if I took what you just said to me, wrote it in a paragraph, ran it by you to see if you're okay with that, and then if you could just post it on, copy paste, post it on my LinkedIn. Would you be okay with that? It's a simple way to get people to put third-party endorsements on your website. Social proof, right? Testimonials, it's why they work. When other people see your reviews, they put more belief in who you are and what you do, right? It's just how it works. It's why all of those little reviews that you look at online when you go book a hotel, it's why you look at them, because you're looking for other people who have been there and you want to know, is this place any good or not? Well, when people are looking to connect, they're looking, is this person any good? Now, give more to get more. Part of your behaviors on digital platforms should be to give recommendations to your clients. Give recommendations to people you've worked with. Go on, if you have a behavior out there, make it a regular behavior to go on and simply say, Sally was awesome at, or they did this really well for a company, or they're one of the best at. Giving a recommendation usually makes people go, ooh, law of reciprocation. You gave me something, I'm going to give you something, right? Law of reciprocation. So one of your behaviors could be to go out and do 5 recommendations a week on platforms like LinkedIn. There's a good chance people will notice that, and you might even want to email them and say, hey, Sally, I gave you a recommendation. Hope it's okay. Want to take a look at it. And then she might say, hey, do you mind if I do that for you as well? Right? So again, give and take, back and forth. Here's what not to do. People smell a fake a mile away on social media and LinkedIn. They smell it, they see it as like, oh my God, it's not true, it's not real. And don't wreck your reputation, right? In other words, don't mislead, don't exaggerate, don't pretend you know people when you don't, right? And don't pass along links you haven't read. This is really important. We've all had the aunt or uncle probably on Facebook who has just arbitrarily passed on a link, and then you read it and you were shocked. You're like, I can't believe Aunt Sally gave me this. This is crazy. This is horrible. And then you went back to Aunt Sally and said, hey, why did you post that? And she's like, well, I didn't even read it. I just reposted it. Now, in your own personal life, it's not a big deal. But when we're talking about your professional reputation, it is a massive deal. So if you're going to post it, either make sure you've watched the whole video that you're reposting, or you've read the whole article and you have an intelligent comment on it. Don't just put it out there, okay? That's a big mistake that people make, is they don't take the time. Tell the truth. Make sure that you're upfront with people. I won't talk a lot about company pages, but there's personal pages and company pages. You got to make sure that you have both. Both are being developed. Both are active. And by the way, if you have a company page, make sure you're following your own company, right? Connect back to it. Like and share all your company posts. It's just, again, more content, more recognition that's happening out there. And encourage your clients to follow it as well. It can be pretty useful. Now, let's talk about getting connected. So how do we get connected? How do we find people to talk to? So the goal on LinkedIn is like any prospecting, best fit customers. First and foremost, you have to know, who are my best fit customers? What industries are they in? What's their title? Are they a VP? Are they a purchasing agent? What's their title, right? What's their geographic region? Is it like Edmonton? Is it Canada? Is it Dubai? Like, where are these people supposed to be? So you want to make sure that you identify clearly who your best fit client is. So I know who my best fit client is: a small to medium sized business owner or president in the Edmonton region who has a sales team of anywhere from 1 to 5 people who are active in their business and have major growth plans for their future, right? That's my best fit client. So those are the people I'm looking for. Now, how do I find them? News leads. I follow people, right? There's a chance or an opportunity to follow people inside of LinkedIn. I look for companies that might fit that. There's another tool called Sales Navigator. Now, that is a tool unto itself. It is a paid tool by LinkedIn. It probably costs you about $90 a month. I've had people say, I bought it, it wasn't that great. I will tell you that your searchability on key elements of your best fit client are tremendous in that tool. So if you really want to get the most out of it, you can use the free version of LinkedIn, or you can use the paid version. And of course, they reserve the best searching options for the paid versions. So that's really where you can get a really small grouping of people you want to talk to. Very focused, very one-on-one type thing. So it's really important. The other thing that's really important about connecting with people is watching for job changes, or what I call important events in their world. When people are going through a change is usually when they're most open to new ideas. So what I use LinkedIn for is I watch people who have changed jobs recently. So if you've changed your job in the last year, I want to talk to you because that's a trigger event. You are more likely to be open to new ideas and new approaches in your new job because you want to make a difference. So I have way better conversations with people like that than people who have been in their job 25 years. Because a lot of times they may not be open to change. Now, that's not entirely true, I'm guessing, but I've just noticed that as a trend. You're going to want to look for new connections. You want to look for people. You can do searches in there for people who are like a certain style of person, right? It will give suggestions on the side as well. You can look in there for people to actually connect to. Now, rapid response. If you're on LinkedIn, and you should be on it, you should have the mobile app, you should have it on your computer. Speed matters. If somebody sends you a message in LinkedIn and you wait 48 hours to respond, your chance of engaging people in a conversation goes down dramatically. 5 minutes or less. You get a response, you respond. Somebody sends you an email, you respond right back, right? The faster you are, the better you're going to be at actually having a conversation or a connection with people. So when I get a LinkedIn message, I get a little sound on my computer, I look at the message, I respond really quickly. I find that I can't always do it within 5 minutes, but I certainly do it within, maximum a couple of hours. So it's really important. Now, the other part is check your prospects' profile. So if they've responded to you, go back and look at, what's going on in their world. So I want to share a recent thing that happened to me on LinkedIn. I had connected with somebody. They came back and accepted my connection. I sent them a response because this is the next step in my process where I said, hey, Sally, would you be open to a 10-minute phone call? Maybe we can add to each other's networks. I don't know. And they came back with, did you look at my profile? So obviously I offended them. So I went back and looked at their profile. I wasn't sure what they were referring to. And what I had missed was they were unemployed. They had a date of January, I think 2020 as an end date for their job. I missed that. So what did I do? I apologized. I said, listen, I did look at your profile, but I never want to assume what's happening in somebody's life or business, good or bad. That's why I reached out. My apologies if you took offense to that. They came back and said, yeah, no problem. I understand. And I said, hey, maybe I can help you if you're looking for a work connection. And so that was my interaction with them. But it was really important that I fixed any problems because I did look at their profile, but there was still a little bit of a miscommunication there. Now, who do you see on LinkedIn? You see some people called open networkers. These are people that add anyone and everyone. It doesn't matter where you are, who you're from. You got people who are what I call the closed networkers. If they haven't met you in real life, they don't add you. They really are hesitant to add anyone else. And then, of course, there's the value networker. I like to fall in the value networker function. So I'm adding people who fit my best fit client profile. I do get a lot of connection requests from people randomly. And by the way, when you ask for a connection request, please, please, please don't be lazy. And what do I mean by that? I can't tell you, I can think of, I probably get 5 connection requests a day. And in the last 3 months, I think I've had 2 people who've taken the time to actually write me a message about why they want to connect. If you're going to connect with people, put a message in about why you want to connect with them. And so when I make that message, I'll often say, listen, Sally, we have never had the pleasure of meeting, right? That's honesty. I haven't met them usually, but I notice we share a lot of the same connections because usually I have multiple second level connections with them. I was wondering if you'd be open to connecting on LinkedIn. That's my message. So I'm doing that with people that I really want to meet. Now, if I've got somebody who's, let's say from Calcutta, India, who wants to connect with me, I typically don't. And I don't connect with them because that's not my best fit client. Now, when I started using LinkedIn, I try to connect with everybody. I try to create this massive network. But over time, I've realized that's probably not my best strategy. And now I'm a lot more picky on who I add to my connection. So it's something that you want to be aware of and thinking about. Remember, you're not the company. You want to create your own personal brand. And again, just be careful around who you're connecting with. I would suggest it's, again, people in your industry, people you want to talk to, people who are relevant. Now, some people suggest 500 is about right, or about 250. I want to say it really depends on what you want to do with a tool like LinkedIn. I have over 3,000 connections, and partly because I have a public message that I want to give and help with people. So I'm looking to have a much bigger network than I think most of my clients should have. I think you probably want to stay focused on the value connections, because those are the people you can connect with and interact with consistently and with some value versus just random. So just a word on how many connections you really should be looking for. Social capital, a little bit, what does that mean? It's just kind of like there's political capital, there's relationship capital, there's social capital. It's making a deposit in that bank of value. And so you want to give more to get more. And that's adding, it's giving, it's sharing. If you come at social selling and digital sales from a sharing perspective, you're going to get a lot further than if you just go from a taking perspective. And I think that's true of any sales, frankly. I think that's true of face-to-face sales. I think it's true of digital sales. I think it's true in both places. So the thing is, how do you give more, right? Again, back to introductions, making sure you give, to your clients, referrals, shout outs. When they post things that they're proud of on LinkedIn, you post and talk about that. You give them, when they do some kind of charity event, you go into the comments box and you say, hey, great job. Really love to see companies like yours giving back to your community. That's all social capital. Now, here's the thing, right? Some of you on this call are going, yeah, but Chad, I need to sell something, and that doesn't seem to equate to dollars. And you're right. There is not a direct correlation between the number of these kinds of things you do and dollars in your bank account. The relationship is a little bit fuzzier than that. But what I will tell you is, as you build your brand in your network, as you build your brand in your community, when you call them and when you reach out to them on a phone or maybe through email, they're going to pay attention to your message a lot more than if you didn't do any of that. Okay, if you were just seen as a taker. So make sure that you're investing time in that. So we know that the world is changing, especially in the B2B world. I would say this also applies to B2C. People have knowledge. They can find out anything they want about what you sell today. There's no problem. And in fact, 70% of the buying decision right now is made before they ever engage a salesperson. So being out there, being that fish, being the fisherman with the lure, that's why that matters, is because there's so much going on the internet right now that people aren't even aware, you're not even aware that they're involved with you. So technology and kind of tracking who's on your website and all that stuff, that's why that's becoming more and more important, because there's a lot of stuff happening before they ever talk to you. So we know that knowledge is becoming a commodity. So the goal with the digital sales process, is to position yourself as an expert, right? Either through what you share, information you talk about, videos you make, all of that's really important. Now, you might not know this, but there's groups on LinkedIn as well. I would suggest that you join groups that you would have joined in real life. So if you're part of a construction association and used to go to their breakfast meetings, see if they have an online group that you can be part of. Now, if you're part of the group, it's kind of like you got to be active in the group. If you just join the group and do nothing and don't post anything and don't comment on anything, you probably get nothing out of it as well. Just like if you join the construction association and you never go, you won't get anything about that networking group either. So you got to be proactive. You have to be giving back. And you can even start your own group in LinkedIn if there isn't one that applies to what you do and who you want to talk to. Now, another question, if you're going to use it, how often should you post? Morning, noon, and night. Listen, I know a lot of us, that's overwhelming. A lot of us have never even started with one post. Here's the thing, you need a consistent plan though. Whether that's once a week, twice a week, you need to be active if you're going to create a presence on there. You have to use images, pictures, videos. I usually suggest companies, if you're part of a group, can you take from others? Is there other content you can share? See what your clients and prospects are reading and posting on. Maybe it's like things like Forbes. You can take their content and repost it so that, again, they start to see you as somebody who's a thinker about business. There's lots of things you can do that make you kind of, you become an expert through association. So don't worry about creating a lot of your own content, but you need an actual schedule of consistency to put yourself out there on a regular basis. So strengthening our prospects, becoming a storyteller, really important. What's the story you're telling about how you reach people? Be active, constructive. The goal again is building value in the relationship, telling stories, solving problems, not have I got a deal for you. So that's got to be your concept. Now make them a hero. That's another key part. What does that mean? When they are posting things about their business and their company, you're commenting on how great they are. Okay, that's that positive ego stroke, and it really goes a long way. Now, searching. How do we actually do this? How do we search for prospects? Do's and don'ts, really important. Be proactive at connecting. You should have a standard of connecting with people through LinkedIn on a consistent basis. Like you should be reaching out and connecting to a certain number of people. I make it a point to connect to 5 to 10 people every week that I don't know. Really important to do. Do research. This is the other thing. What's your competition doing? What are they posting? You can use that tool to find out what your competitors are doing, what they're talking about, and there might be an opportunity for you to then leverage that in your own world, because there's a lot of data out there that you could use. Not everybody's a prospect. This is the real big danger. As soon as somebody connects with you, you think you're going to sell them something. Don't mix business and socializing. This is really important. Please, please, please have separate accounts for business versus social. Do not mix the two. In Facebook, I've seen people muddy this up. They have like their professional, like their business world, but then they add in political stuff. Then they add in religious stuff. Then they add in all, and it really turns people off. Now, I realize Facebook is separate. I have a Facebook profile. It's separate from my personal one. I never put clients on my personal one, only on my professional one. And I only post business stuff on my professional one. I don't mix the two ever. On LinkedIn is not Facebook. Nobody wants to know about your dog. No, it's just seen as clutter. So it's about business. Make it about business. Don't add stuff about, your kid's pet. Nobody cares. Be careful about getting so busy you go broke. Time blocking. Make sure that you time block specific things, right? So LinkedIn, a great time to do that is when nobody wants to talk to you in real life. I find that's usually early in the morning. I grab a cup of joe, I sit at my computer, and from 7 a.m. till about 8 a.m., I'll spend time on LinkedIn. It's a great time to do it. Nobody's picking up their phone anyway. They're probably still driving to work. Great time for me to interact with those digital platforms. Targeting smart. New connections, lots of search capabilities. If you're using the free version of LinkedIn, I strongly suggest you invest in the paid version. You will be able to see a whole lot more than you see on the free version. One of the key things that I use it for is I want to see who's checking me out. I can see up to 3 levels, 3rd level connections of who's been on my LinkedIn profile. And when I see them on there and I'm not connected, I make a reach out connection. Say, hey, don't know if you dropped onto my page on it by accident or on purpose, wondering if you would be open to connecting with me. So I've talked a little bit about the advanced search tools. They're tremendous inside of this tool to give you a list of people to reach out to. And once you've targeted that list, you can either use the phone, you can use in-mails through LinkedIn. There's lots of ways you can connect with these people, but now you are very specific on who you're trying to connect with. One of the other key reasons to use digital platforms are referrals. So I often tell people who haven't really done a lot with LinkedIn, the first thing you want to do is connect with all your customers. Absolutely make sure you do this, because when you connect with them, you can see who their connections are. Now, in the free version, it's limited. In the paid version, you can actually see all their people that, everyone they're connected to, and you can ask for an introduction. So, story happened to me last week. I was on with one of my current clients. Before I phoned them, I went through his list of people he's connected to. I saw a company that I've been trying to get into that I did not know that individual, and I've had zero success. So when I talked to him, I said, hey, by the way, listen, don't know if you know so-and-so from, ABC company. And he's like, yeah, absolutely, I know them. They're one of our clients. We work with them all the time. I said, would you be willing to do me a favor? He said, sure. I said, would you be willing to give me an introduction, or would you be willing to contact them to see if they're open to having a 10-minute phone call with me? He said, absolutely, Chad. So that was Friday. By Tuesday, I had a phone call with their executive vice president of sales, which is, again, a company I've been trying to get into, had my conversation and set up another first meeting. So very powerful to figure out who you want to talk to. So for those of you who struggle with referrals, don't know who to ask for, when you ask for a specific name, people either know them or don't know them. And if they know them and they like you, they now know who to introduce you to. It's extremely powerful. And by the way, we know that referrals, I don't know about your business, but statistically, referrals close at a much higher rate than a cold call, right? We're talking 60, 70% and even higher in some industries. All right, making contact. So when you get in touch with them, a couple of key points. Provide a solution that doesn't involve buying anything. So when you start, it's around, we call that a bit of a monkey's paw, right? If the first thing that you're going to do is say you have to buy X with us without creating value, a lot of times you're going to get pushback. So some suggestions, some clients that we have, they'll offer like a 20-minute survey on, let's say it's on business processes. So they'll do a little bit of an analysis for them and give them some feedback. That's what we call in Sandler world a monkey's paw. So we want to, just give you a little to get you engaged with us to see if there's something more. Or maybe in our world, we'll do a sales assessment right off the top, just to get them engaged, talk about what's going on in their world. But there's things that, information that they might find value. Now, there's a fine line here between giving everything away and not making any money, so you got to be careful. Content, don't go crazy on the content. Some people you'll drop 80 million things in their inbox. Don't do that. Detailed meeting agendas, we call those upfront contracts. What's the purpose? So once I get you off the online world where you said, yeah, I'm willing to take a phone call, great, send an agenda. Here's what we're going to talk about. These are the things that we're going to cover in a meeting so they understand what is going to happen. And make sure that you are solving their problems specifically to them. That means you would have to have asked some questions to figure out what that is. Don't be generic. People get real tired of that in a hurry. Point number 9, really important, Matchmaker. Sometimes they're not a fit. Sometimes when you start talking to them, it's just not a good fit. Make sure that you're willing to connect them with other people in your network. Being a matchmaker sometimes is frankly far more valuable than the demo or the sales call. They might be connected to other people who in fact would be a much better fit for you, but you got to be willing to do that with them. So worst practices, I think I mentioned some of these. Proofreading your profile, make sure there's no spelling mistakes, nothing wonky in your own profile. Pretending that everything you do on LinkedIn counts as prospecting. This is also dangerous. Sometimes people use that platform and only that platform. You still need to phone. You still need to email. You still need to reach out to people through those tools. It's not the only tool. Number 5, long written sales pitches. Oh my God. If you write 8 paragraphs, the chance of anybody reading that are slim to none. So whether you're using LinkedIn email or you have their email and it's a cold email, a couple of things. Number 1, your subject line needs to be short and maybe a question. Like, would you be interested in connecting? Question mark. People are more likely to respond to that. Next, in the body, no more than 300 words. People don't read it if it's more than 300 words. If you can't say or ask what you need to do in 300 words, it's too much. Again, it's why LinkedIn limits people to 300 characters actually on the connection. It's really short. People, if you can't capture them and give them a reason about why you're reaching out in sentence number 1, 2, or 3, there's a good chance that, frankly, nobody is going to respond. So really, really critical. CEOs, how do you communicate with a CEO? You need to ask yourself what it is that is important to them. What do they care about? What are the words? What are the problems they're trying to solve? You need to sound like the people you're selling to. Now, that's the CEO. Some of you don't sell to CEOs, you sell to project managers. Some of you sell to ops managers. Some of you sell to health and safety officers. Doesn't really matter. You need to sound like them. You need to understand their concerns. You need to understand their problems. When you put it in an email, you got to be careful that you sound and look like them, that there's some confidence there. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of trouble and people will not respond. So when it comes to creating that path, at Sandler, we've got a couple of rules. Number 1, no peddling or pushing. So just like we teach in real life, you're not here to, how can I get you in a car today? That is not an effective sales strategy. What we want to do is find out if they have any real pains we can solve. And we want to make sure that, they recognize they have these issues and they're willing to talk about it. That doesn't change whether you're on a digital landscape or in a real life landscape. Whether you're on the phone or using email, it all applies. Now, the problem is with digital is oftentimes you're missing the personal touch, that face-to-face communication. There are ways that can help you with that. I forgot to mention on LinkedIn, when people connect with you, you can actually send them a little video in LinkedIn that's personal. We do that quite a bit with people who connect with us. So if you've connected, a lot of times I'll shoot a little thank you video and say, hey, thanks for connecting with me. Really appreciate it. Look to connect with you in real life. Send. We get meetings from that because people go, that's unique and different. So if you have the LinkedIn mobile app and you go to the bottom where you can respond to people, there's a little plus sign. And if you click on that, you can shoot a video. If you don't want to shoot a video, you can record your voice. Either way, it can help you. Now, the goal of any digital sales is to make that initial contact, but then it's to get them in a meeting. Right now, we cannot have face-to-face meetings. We can have virtual meetings, right? So the goal is, what do you want to have happen? So when I'm talking about commitments, especially when I meet somebody digitally, my first commitment is a connection, right? Are you willing to connect? Here's why I'm connecting with you. That's the first step. Once they connect with me, I thank them and I say, hey, Sally, thanks for connecting with me. I usually send a little video. And then I'll say, would you be open to having a 10-minute phone call just to see if there's some value that we could bring to each other's networks? Once we do that, if they're open to that, we get on the phone. We talk 10 minutes. And in that, I use this process here that we use at Sandler. So upfront contract. Hey, Sally, hey, thanks for giving me 10 minutes. There's probably, questions around your network, my network. And typically at the end of it, we find out if there's anything we can do together or if there's a reason for us to meet. Would that be acceptable to you? So we do a little upfront contract. And then I find out about their business and who they are. So Sally, what made you want to connect with me? Tell me a little bit more about company ABC. I see that you posted about this, right? So I get them talking, find out a little bit more, see if there's any real pain there. I share my 30-second commercial with them about what we do. And maybe there's a next step, maybe there isn't, right? So at the end of it, I say, Sally, is there a reason? You think there's a reason for us to meet at this point, or to schedule that kind of meeting, or not, right? So that's the end. Now, just like doing a cold call, you got to ask yourself, what's the percentage of people? You're a suspect, you're not a prospect. So if I called 100 people, out of those 100, how many people would really have time to meet with me or want to meet with me? Not a lot, right? Probably about 5 to 6%. It's not a huge number, but I don't need it to be a huge number. I just need to do that behavior to get 5 or 6 opportunities. Once I get those opportunities, that's my first meeting, and now I get into qualification mode, right? That's what my first meeting's about. So when you look at your digital sales process, don't ask for too much too quick, right? Small incremental little things. How are you building trust? Either through the digital platform, like whether that's through your email, information you're giving, questions you're asking. It's not a hard sell, and it's qualifying, right? Just because they said, I'm willing to connect with you, doesn't necessarily make them a prospect. And the last bullet point says sell with integrity. So what does that mean? A lot of times I hear things from people that they say, that guy could sell ice to Eskimos. And I always wonder if that's really what should be happening, because what if they don't need that ice? They have a lot of ice. There's really no need for it. That's not integrity. On the other hand, if that person needed a sculpture, a swan sculpture, and they don't know how to make that, and you do, and that's what they really want for their party, hey, that's great. They do need the ice, right? That's integrity. But the other side of integrity is, what if you withhold your solution to people who could benefit from it? See, that's also lack of integrity. So some of us are nervous and afraid to execute using digital platforms like LinkedIn, like email. We're not doing the behaviors. We're not reaching out. We're nervous. We're scared. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of screwing up. Instead of starting the process and saying, who's my best fit client? What's my messaging? I need to just reach out and connect and see what happens, because you could be denying them a solution that could make their business way better, that could make their lives way better. And that's also integrity. So it works on both sides of the equation. So a couple of things that we have available. I mentioned the LinkedIn PDF. If you're interested in that, you can email us. We can send it to you. We have a book out here called Digital Prospecting. If that's something you'd be interested in, there's a lot of things that, of course, we couldn't cover in an hour that are in this book. This is a $20 investment. Again, you can reach out to us and say, really would like that digital prospecting book, and we can make sure we get that book to you. So that's the other option that we have out there. The other option we have is we're going to go in depth on this. So this webinar was to give you a couple of great ideas that maybe you could take away and use digitally. But we want to help. Some of you need to go to the gym, but you need a trainer, right? So if you think about buying the pass to the gym as your $15 commitment, that doesn't mean you get any changes when you go, because you're like, lots of great ideas, but I need somebody to help me with it. This is about hiring the trainer. We're the trainer. We're going to come alongside of you, and we've got this page called Digital Sales. If you're interested, it's a paid workshop. So it's $195. It's going to be for the morning. We don't know right now. It's probably going to be virtual, but it might be in real life, depending on what the rules are around COVID. So if you know that you're not going to do anything on your own, but this is really important and you want to up your game, maybe this is an option for you. So I really appreciate it. I think we're at the end of our webinar today. Thanks everybody for joining us. I know some people were asking me questions, and I can answer a couple. And some people were asking about photos, about what they should wear, and I would say, in your photo, you want to wear things, frankly, that you would wear to your sales call. Like that would be my my recommendations. By the way, recordings, other people are asking about recordings. Absolutely. We're going to make this recording available to everybody on this webinar, that you have it. Somebody asked me, who do I send in-mails to? I will send in-mails to people that I really want to connect with. And it usually larger companies where it's difficult to get through maybe gatekeepers or figure out what their phone number is. Those are people that I'll often use in-mails for. So we had some questions. Like I said, we're at the top of the hour. If there's any other questions that we didn't cover in this webinar and you want to ask us, it's chad.bandman@sandler.com. we would love to have you reach out to us and connect that way as well. So with that, we'll wrap up today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.